Hey everybody, it's Kelsey, and I want to introduce you to our man crush. This is Evan McDaniel in his very non-threatening happy shirt. And just in case you wanted to know, he just kicked our ass. So if I'm all sweaty and gross, don't worry, because you can't smell it, but you can see it. So
I can smell it though.
so he's fine. It's no big deal. So we're gonna go through what we do in the morning because he told us that we have broken things. So we are going to fix the broken things, and he is going to share with you how to do that because we are now telling all of you guys that you need to do that, and you want to hear it straight from our trainer.
Yeah, so what we're going to be going through is something called controlled articular rotations, and this what we're going to be doing is the morning routine. So this is what you do every morning when you wake up in order to just kind of scan your body, make sure that your joints still work the way that you want them to, make sure that you're getting familiar with the degree of freedom that you have for each range of motion, and just really work on preserving and maintaining everything that you have already. And like I said, it's really good for kind of scanning for injuries early on. If you wake up in the day and your neck is just not feeling right, you know that you're really going to need to address that from the get-go instead of going through a hard training session. So we're just going to go joint by joint, starting with the neck, and then work our way all the way down to the toes. So,
okay, so he had a good point because you can do this right out of bed, right?
Oh yeah. So that's when we want to do it. And like when I tell my clients that we're doing the morning routine, like this is what you do as a wake up process until you die. Like this is just forever. This is what you do now, and you're welcome.
So this is me getting out of bed.
Yeah, so this is you getting out of bed. And we're going to start with the neck. So the biggest thing with controlled articular rotations is obviously one, they're controlled, and the second big thing is that it's a big rotation. So we want to take your joints through the fullest range of motion possible. So when we're starting with the neck, we're going to tilt the chin down, and then we're going to look as far as we can over that shoulder, and then we're going to try and lay it back up to the ceiling, take it over the other shoulder, all the way down to the center, and then we'll go ahead and reverse directions, go the same thing on the other side. Just paying attention to, am I moving anything else in my body? If I'm getting my shoulders into it and kind of waving all over the place, or am I staying pretty solid and moving at just the neck, just the joint that we're intending to move at?
And we don't want anything else moving, mainly because...
Well, because it takes away from the specificity of the articulation that we're trying to look at. So I don't really care how far you can take your head around in a circle. Like, I care about, does your neck turn this way? Does it turn up? Does it turn to the side? Good examples for that, like I really noticed a big benefit of this driving. If you guys have ever noticed, you're driving and then you see something on your right and you kind of go to look over and your neck is really tight and then you have to turn kind of your whole body. This really helps to eliminate that because now I've taken my neck this way already this morning. So now if I need to do it in an emergency, my body's been there, it feels comfortable there, I'm not going to strain anything, I'm not going to hurt anything. So really good for just, again, am I going through the largest range of motion in just that joint, or am I letting the rest of my body go for a ride? I already know that your body can go there, but can your neck go there?
Perfect.
So each joint that we focus on, we want to really have good integrity of the movement for that.
Perfect.
All right, so now we're going to go ahead and stand on up, and we're getting into the spine. So the spine is a really tricky one. Most people's spines don't move well, but that's something that we're going to work on. So we're going to flex our spine forward. So if this is my spine, I want to just round it forward. I don't want to hinge forward at the hips. So show me a hinge forward at the hips. So we're not trying to go way down. I know Kelsey's very flexible, but all we're trying to look at is just in the spine, has it rounded down. Now again, same thing as the neck. I want to turn first, so it's like I'm dropped in a bucket of cement from my waist down. I'm going to turn, and then I'm going to lay back. And then one vertebrae at a time, we're going to walk up tall, not letting the hips push forward. We're going to turn to the other direction, and then finish the movement right down to the center. And then we're going to go ahead and reverse it the other way, really keeping those hips nice and tight, really feeling out the entirety of the spine itself, coming down, finishing through the other direction. Go ahead, relax. One question I get asked a lot from people is like, oh, how many times should I do this?
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't have an answer for that. It's really as many times as you feel you need to. It could be once, it could be 5 times.
Okay.
It just, each joint is going to feel a little bit different. So it's like, hey, if my neck is really stiff today, I'm going to really take it through a couple of range of motions. If I wake up, my neck feels just golden. Good, do it once, make sure it's there, and then move on.
Yeah.
So it's just gonna vary day by day, how many times you do it, how slowly you do it, what your intent is with it. It's more of a learning process for your body.
Cool.
All right, so now we're gonna get into the shoulders. Shoulders are broken down into two parts. We've got our shoulder blades, which are the scapula, and then we've got the glenohumeral joint, which is a fancy way of saying where that arm inserts into that. Why don't we go ahead and do this one facing the opposite direction so that they can see your back. So what we're gonna look at is her actual shoulder blades themselves. So the hands are gonna be down by the side, nice strong ninja hands, straight arms, everything else is nice and tight. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start by pinching the shoulder blades together, both, and then we're gonna elevate, and then we're gonna press them forward, and then depress, back, up, forward, and down. So you see how big of a circle she's able to get with the shoulder blade, and then we're gonna go ahead and reverse directions. So just taking it both directions, making sure that the rib cage is staying nice and steady, and that the shoulder blades are just taken through their fullest articulation and range of motion. Let's show them a couple of quick faults. So if you pull back and your elbows come with you, if your hands leave your side, or if you start getting too much just global movement in the rest of your body, again, what are we looking at? It's not how far do my arms go, how far do my hands go, it's how much control do I have over just my shoulder blades themselves. Good, let's go ahead and turn around. So now we're gonna get into the tricky ones. Probably the hardest ones that I've noticed for people, it's gonna be glenohumeral and then into the, femoroacetabular, your hip.
That sounds great.
I know, it makes me sound smart. But basically we've got a ball and socket joint here and a ball and socket joint here. Those are the ones with the greatest potential range of motion, but those are the ones that are often limited in a lot of range of motion because we don't do things behind us. So we've actually been working on your range of motion a lot,
Yes.
so this will be a good one for today. So we'll go ahead, let's have you standing sideways so that they can see what we're looking for. So we're gonna start with her left hand, right hand's down, making a fist, just nice and strong. Left hand, we're gonna take it, we're gonna forward flex, so we're coming up as far as we can. We're really reaching back. As soon as we hit that block, we're gonna start to internally rotate from the shoulder, really continue to internally rotate, and then finishing the circle. The hand is gonna end up backwards by the hip right here because we're really rotated as much as we can through that shoulder joint. Now we're gonna take it back the opposite direction. As soon as we hit a block, we start to turn around. Keep turning, take it back up to that original point, and then down. That was solid. So let's show them a couple of faults that we're looking for. So if we start to come up, and that shoulder really hikes as we take it with it, I already looked at your scapula, so I don't want that to move anymore. And as you start to come around, if you start to open up too much, like we're trying to draw too big of a circle with our arm, again, I don't really care about where your hand is going, and I don't want you to focus on where your hand is going. I want you to look in your mind's eye, where is my shoulder? Where does my shoulder insert into my trunk? And how much range of motion do I have with just that? Let's go ahead and get the other side.
Okay.
So same thing, show me correct. Go ahead, just up, back. We're gonna hit that block and turn around it. We're staying nice and strong through here. Continue to twist, really twist as much as you can. Hand ends up backwards. Taking it back, up, and around, and finishing down. Again, how many times? Depends on how it feels. If you go through the first time and it's all crunchy, you might want to do a second. If you go through the first time and it feels great, go ahead and move on.
Cool.
All right, so now we're gonna get into elbows. Elbows are a little bit physically simpler, but we're gonna be looking for some specific stuff with it.
Okay.
So your elbows, very similar to your knee, are just a hinge joint, so mostly it's just up and down. So think of like a bicep curl.
Okay.
But there is some rotation in the elbow. So what we want is to maximally press into that rotation. So we're gonna go supinated is palm up, pronated is palm down. So we're gonna maximally supinate, and where do I want that rotation to come from is actually in the elbow itself. So as Kelsey comes up, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna test if she can turn in any more. And you're really gonna feel that in a weird spot. You're gonna feel that like between your forearm bones, like really deep in there. And that's where we want it. We wanna test out how much range of motion do I have just in that elbow. Now we're gonna maximally pronate. And again, we're really tapping in down there. And then we're gonna press straight down, and then keeping your hands the same way, we're gonna come right back up, turn maximally the other way, and then straight down. Again, not very physically demanding, it's just moving your arm up and down, but it's looking at, can I get the most extreme amount of rotation in that joint? Because that's where we'll tend to get stuff like, your golfer's elbow, your tennis elbow,
Right.
all sorts of problems happening up and downstream because we can't really turn our hands. So if you have
Yeah.
issues with your pull-ups, your bench press, doing stuff on the ground, you're like, oh, when I do this, my elbow feels really weird.
Right.
We want to restore a little bit more of that rotational range of motion.
Yeah.
So this kind of helps you scan it and be aware of it and progress it to some degree, but that is something that we get into a little bit later into programming. So now we're going to take a look at wrists. Wrists are another one, physically not very hard, but mentally not getting your forearm to dump is a challenge.
Okay.
So what we want to do, we're going to go ahead and use one hand right here to feel your other forearm. We're not trying to stop it from turning, but we're just trying to be aware of when we have that tendency.
Okay.
So now I want to think like I'm drawing a circle with that finger, so I want to take it back as far as possible, and then I'm going to start to draw a circle. As I come up and around, I'm looking for the most extremes in each range, and being careful again as I start to do my circles that my forearm right here doesn't start to dump over and go for a ride. Let's go ahead and reverse directions with it.
And I
Just
think
like
like
that.
the biggest thing that people tend to do on this is get their fingers involved.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So again,
so instead
it's
of this guy, it's just really how flat can you have your hand, right?
Yep. Yeah, and it's focusing again on how much range of motion do I have in just my wrist versus where can I move my fingers.
Right.
We tend to think, or at least I believe that most people tend to think like, okay, what's the end result that I'm trying to get to instead of what's the means that I'm trying to get there by. So this is very much more a means than the end result.
Cool.
So
Okay.
focusing on just that joint itself. All right, so that takes care of our upper limb. Now we're moving into our lower limb. Again, it gets a little bit complicated up here and then simpler physically as we go down. So
These are the most fun.
this is the most fun. People's hips are
Messed
just a
up.
disaster. Yeah, we sit too much, so we don't ever use our glutes and we don't ever really use them behind us, even though it is our backside. But,
Yeah.
Anyway, semantics. So getting into this, again, what we're looking for is what is the largest range of motion that I can get out of just where my leg bone inserts into my pelvis. So if this is kind of my femur, that's where it sits in my pelvis. This is what I'm looking for, is how much range does it have in here. We're gonna get a lot of global movement with this one because that pelvis is gonna wanna take a ride.
Yeah.
So don't focus on where is my foot going, where is my knee going, focus more on how much control do I have through just that hip.
Okay.
You're gonna want some balance, because we can do this as a balance exercise, but we normally in the morning routine, like you're half asleep anyway, I don't wanna
Yeah.
focus too much on that.
Yeah. And I'm tired after burpees. So.
Yeah. Let's go offhand on the stomach just to remind us to kind of stay firm and hold it steady. We're going to bring the knee up towards the chest without any pelvic distortion and hiking. We're going to barn door. We're going to swing it out open to the side. Once we hit that block, we're going to rotate and then reach back. Take it maximally through. No cheating.
Woo!
Finish the circle, and then we're going to extend back. And then we're coming up and around like we're trying to step over a hurdle. So really picking up nice and high and around. Good. Let's go ahead and show the other side. And let's show the other side with some compensation in the movement. So this is what we're looking to avoid, coming up too high and dumping. So come up too high. So we don't want to come up too high. So let's start over again. Now, as we come out, open up the pelvis. As we come out again, you see how her pelvis kind of opens up. We're looking to avoid that. And then as we transition, we're looking to avoid hiking. So there's going to be a lot of tendency to try and compensate in each of those areas. So we really want to lock it down. So show me the largest range of motion you can go through with compensation. So go ahead and just cheat all the way through it. She's like Jean-Claude Van Damme kicking people in the faces right now. So now let's go no compensation. Up, out, rotating, So as we can see, much smaller range of motion, but it came just through the hip. Now let's take it back and around, like we're stepping over that hurdle. Good. So again, focusing on just the hip, the glute working, not how high can I step over something, not looking for too many of those external cues. But the only one that I really like to think of is think of stepping over that hurdle, because we're also going to have a tendency as that trail leg comes through to want to kick like a soccer ball. We want to keep it rotated up as high as we can. So when we're going through it, coming back, up, we're trying to stay up high, not let it drift down through early. So we're really trying to maximize that rotation in the joint so that we're talking to the deepest stuff in there, so that we're getting the most feed into our brain, the part that controls where our awareness of our motion is, not only the awareness, but the actual control of the movement. So we're really trying to talk to our brain
and
a lot while
you'll
we're
know
doing this.
because you can feel that.
It's a
If
huge
you
difference.
can't feel that in
Yeah.
your butt when you're doing that, then you're probably not doing it correctly.
Yeah, so
Because
that's,
I can feel that, like every single movement right there is like, oh, okay.
yeah, it gets it lit up. So if you do notice that you're having any trouble with getting into the positions, or just having trouble with the activation, very, very, very important that you learn how to do it from someone who knows what to look for. Don't just start guessing, or else you'll start to learn it wrong. And then if you learn it wrong and then you do it wrong, you'll never get the right result out of it. It's like, I don't know, doing a color by numbers and just throwing it away and scribbling on the paper and saying, I don't know why it didn't turn out nice.
Yeah.
I colored it.
I mean, that's art in general. Art can be very like a fun perspective, not with fitness.
Not with fitness.
No, do it right.
Yeah, darn it, or else I'll be so mad.
Yeah.
All right, so just got through the complicated one. Now we're going to drop down into the knees. So the knees, I go right back into sitting on the edge of the bed or a bench or anything that you're looking for. So the knee, similar to the elbow, primarily a hinge joint. So we're mostly just doing flexion extension with it. So you're just extending and pulling back. But what we want to do is we want to recognize that there is also a rotational component that happens in the tibia right here. So when you're feeling, go ahead and take where your kneecap is, and then there's going to be your tendon, and then where the tendon inserts into the bone, you can feel just the front of your shin there. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to follow Kelsey's bone. I want you to turn your foot in, so that's going to kind of turn in here, and now as you turn out, that's going to turn out. So we should notice some rotation in that. If you don't have rotation in that, go see a physical therapist or a functional range conditioning provider, because your knees are jacked up.
Yeah, that would be him, by the way.
That would be me, by the way.
Yeah, he's fixing that.
Just come see me.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take it to the most extreme. So we're going to turn all the way out, and then we're going to extend and flex, and then we're going to turn it all the way in and extend and flex. So again, we're just looking for how much rotation can I get, take it through a range of motion. How much rotation do I get the other way, take it through a range of motion. Let's go ahead and switch knees. Again, physically, this is not a very challenging one, but mentally, it's a little bit tougher because you're really looking for inside here, do I feel that rotate? Do I know what that feels like? Am I really able to tap into that? Or am I just moving my leg back and forth? Second part of the knees, we've got this weird floating bone called your patella, your kneecap. So in order to get that, I want you to go ahead and straighten out your knees. All right, and now draw circles with your patella. So notice how she's using her thumbs, because unless you're a weird anomaly, I can't get my patella to just voluntarily do circles itself. So we've got to kind of help it out with that. So what we're doing is we're just taking the thumb, and we're just really, I used to say tracing, but like you're really pressing that knee cap through a range of motion. I want you guys to explore how much movement it has. So if you think of it kind of sitting in a bowl and then it's right here, you want to really take it through the edges of that bowl. Like, do I have good freedom of movement with it? Or is it crunchy? Is it sticky? Is it painful? Mm-hmm. Probably one of the more important things, I don't think that we really talked about it, but pain. What if it hurts when I do this?
Yeah.
So there's a difference between opening and closing angle pain, but we'll just kind of talk about it in the context of the kneecap. Don't push something that hurts. I hate the whole fitness idea of like pain is weakness leaving your body. Like, no, pain is your body telling you that you're doing it wrong and that you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between like soreness and fatigue and working hard, and I'm just poking at an injury that's never going to allow it to get better. So there's a philosophy that I really adhere to, which is like, don't pick the scab. Like, if you know that you've got an injury, you know that you've got something that's going wrong, don't constantly check on it. Like, don't pick at the scab. Don't like keep seeing if it still hurt, because it is, and you'll keep hurting it, and then it's never going to get better. So if we're going through any of these and you guys get into any what we'll call closing angle pain, so like let's take my neck for example. If I lean my neck this way, I should feel a stretch here. If I feel a pinch on this side, don't do it, don't push through it, bypass it on your morning routine, and again, go to a care provider that knows what to do with that. So a physical therapist, massage therapist, functional range conditioning, like someone who actually knows what they're doing to address that, or else, big shock, your body is not just gonna get better on its own. Like, you need to tell it what to do. And it doesn't speak English, so you need to talk to someone who knows how to speak force. So you need to actually physically tell your body what to do. And if you don't know, find someone who does, because they will help and expedite the process beyond your wildest dreams.
We know people.
We know people.
We know people.
All right, moving on to the ankles now, getting into the fun stuff. So ankles, very similar to wrists, we're just going through a big range of motion. So you're just kind of pulling your knee up, and then we're drawing as big of a circle as we can with your toe. Going in both directions, and again, really looking for the extremes. We may get a little bit of tibial rotation with this one. It's, as far as I'm concerned, we're just kind of splitting hairs. Like, I don't want you to focus on rotating your tibia, so try and keep it silent, but really just focus on taking the ankle through a big range of motion.
Got it.
All right, and then we're gonna get into toes, but since I'm already barefoot, I guess I'll just do toes for you guys. So I'm gonna get nice and close. You guys are gonna see what my weird feet look like. So for toes, what we're doing is we're just trying to get control over them, which is surprisingly difficult for most people. So what we're gonna start with is just a big toe lift. So I'm gonna keep my balance steady, and I'm gonna pick up just my big toes. I'm gonna pick them up and tap them about, like, I don't know, 3 times or so. Then I'm gonna leave my big toe down, and I'm gonna lift up all of my little toes. Just up and down, tap them. Then I'm gonna lift up all of the toes and tap down just the big toe, if you can, if I can. And then we're gonna lift all of them up and tap down just the little toes. And then we're gonna turn them up, fan them out, and then we're gonna try and play the piano. So I'm just gonna drop one toe at a time, and then pick one toe at a time up, drop them down, and pick them up. All right, so that is...
You think that looks easy? It's probably the hardest thing you'll do the entire time. And then you'll be really annoyed that you can't do it.
And that's a great concept that I go over with a lot of my clients too. Limitations in range of motion, it's not, and this is gonna be a little bit different, but it's not tight muscles and weak muscles. It's your body just doesn't trust you to go in that range of motion. So like with your feet, for example, it's not like your toes are so tight that you can't lift them up. Your brain just thinks that you have a shoe there because you haven't told it that you don't have a shoe and that you have feet. So when you have limitations, perceived limitations in your range of motion or your movement capacity, it's just something that you need to practice and work on. So it's not because you're weak, it's not because you're tight, it's just because your body doesn't trust you to go there and it lost that ability. So a lot of what we do with the morning routine is just we're regaining the ability to control our body. So it's gonna be very frustrating, it's gonna take a long time, but again, you're gonna do this every day until you die. So you're gonna get good at it eventually, and you'll only get better and better with more practice. But if you need more help and guidance, find a good functional range conditioning provider. I'm always here in the Beaverton area. Otherwise, you can find one of my colleagues. I'm sure that they also know what they're doing, at least if they don't, then I haven't.
Don't ask us.
Don't ask
I
us.
don't know. That's why we go to him.
Yeah.
So if you guys need more information or whatever, we'll put obviously Evan's info on here too. But yeah, if you have stuff, ask. We'll have him answer some questions if you do as well. So.
Oh yeah, I'm always here for follow-up videos too. So.
Yeah, and he says fun words.
I do
Yeah.
say fun, fancy words.
And he listens to the 80s.
Yeah, mostly it's the 80s.